So you want to leave the pins in because that's what's going to anchor your fabric together while you're sewing. You want to make a 1/2 inch line around so that it accounts for the seam allowance. And you only want to do it for the first 3 sides. So this side, and this side. Leave this side alone because that's what we're going to use to be flipping. And you can do this by hand with just a simple stitch or a sewing machine on just, a normal stitch setting. Alright. So the end result is basically your the line that I've drawn here in the square is going to be how big your bands are going to be. So I'm going to sew these really quickly. Okay, so now we have our bands stitched, at least a little bit, 3/4 of the way. So I'm going to unpin, put them back in the pin cushion. Should we roll up? Alright, and now you don't have to worry about these chalk marks. You can wipe them off if you want, but they're going to be on the inside of your band anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So now what you want to do is you want to flip it inside out, just like this, like you know how you would if you have an inside out sock. Just grab it, pinch. You know what you might want to do first before you do that. Sorry, I had to run and grab my scissors. Naru had them. She was working on the Kotetsu vest. So before you flip it, what you want to do is on the sides that you have sewn, just clip off a little bit. Make sure not to get the seam you just did, but cut off 2 like little triangles so that it'll flip easier and it won't be as bulky. Just be careful that you don't cut your seam that you just made. So as you can see here, I've cut off, it's black thread, so I'm not even sure if you can see, but I've cut off just a little triangle piece so that it would be easier to flip it. And if you really, really want to, you can also trim off the excess here, but I'm not going to do that. So I don't really think it needs it. So like I said before, just do it like you would a sock that you're going to be flipping inside out. Just shove it in. And before you straighten it, you want to make sure that you get the points. You know what? I think I can trim this a little bit more. And it's okay if it gets wrinkled, we're going to be ironing them anyway, so yeah. Yeah, much better. It's not completely pointed, but you know what? It's perfectly alright. So there's one, and it's going to look smaller because we've just, you know, sewn out of seam allowance. So it's going to be like this, and then, you know, it's going to be able to go around your wrist just like that. So now let's do the other one. This one came out a little bit crooked, but this can go on the bottom. It's totally okay. So see, now that one is like that. And you have your two. If you do have one that ends up, that you end up messing up on, like I did right there, you can always, when you stack these, put it on the bottom. Like that. So now what you want to do is you want to iron these out, and you want to, you know, make the seams nice and sharp so that it's all nice and even and flattened out. So I'm going to do that in two pieces. And what I've also done is I've folded in this end part and ironed that down so that it stays. And we're going to do a top stitch all the way around. You don't have to do a top stitch all the way around. You can just stitch here as close as you can to the edge. Not sure if I'm going to do that. It's up to you. For this one, I did do a top stitch all the way around. It doesn't really make that much of a difference, I guess, but if you want to do that, you can, but you don't have to. If you want to do a top stitch, I suggest you do as close as you can to the edge. So I think what I'm going to do for this one is just sew here, just to close up the seam, and maybe just a little bit on the sides stitched. And the next thing we're going to do now is put them on top of each other, and we're going to stitch them just a seam right there. So line them up, and it doesn't have to be, you know, anything special or fancy. So basically what you're going to do is just more or less draw a straight line, just to make sure it's a straight line, and I think, now I'm going to do it on this side. And it doesn't really have to be exactly in the middle, just where you think you want to sew. And you don't even have to start all the way at the end. You can start from like right here, where your fabric is like a little more thin. So again, I'm going to take my chalk and just draw on that straight line. And like I said, you can wipe this chalk off with water, so it's perfectly okay. So like I did right there, we made a line, and now we're done with the sewing. So as you can see, we have the two layers together, and they're together, and now it can wrap around the wrist, just like that. See? Now what we're going to do is we're going to start preparing the watch. We're going to set the watch there, and we're going to see, first, you know what I'm going to do first is put the studs in the watch. So here's the studs. Like I said, I got these on eBay. They're really, really cheap, so they're going to be very easy to find. I'm just going to dump a few of them out here. So what we're going to do is just use your best judgment on this. So to start putting them in, I'm going to put mine just a little bit past the watch face. So right about I'll show you once I put it on. So as you can see, I put it in just a little bit past the watch face. You know what? I'm going to redo it because on this one it's not as close. So I'm gonna take it out and back it up just a little. There. So, you know, just do what you think is right. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect or exact or anything. And here's a little tiny issue with this. The back of the stud won't go all the way through. I'm trying to pop it through. I don't know if it's going to work. If you're able to poke it all the way through, if it's a really thick watch like this, it's not going to come out. So you don't really have to push the ends. So just be aware of that. If it's a thinner watch, like this one was a thinner watch, so on the underside, I can't really show you because I super glued where I did it, but on this, you can see I took a some kind of object, flat object, and just pushed in the studs so that they'd stay. But if you have a really thick watch like this one that I have, if you shove the stud in all the way through, it shouldn't come out. Especially since you're going to be super gluing the back of this to the band anyway. It's always good to try and shove it as best as you can though. So that's what I'm going to do. So if there's a design on your watch like this one has, you can figure out how far apart to make the studs based on the design. So like you can see here, the squiggly line right here, I put the stud right next to it, and then this side is the same thing. The squiggly line is right here, and I put the stud there. So just so you know. So again, I'm going to push the stud in as far as I can. This watch is thicker than I thought it was, or I didn't know how thick the watch band was going to be, so with a thinner band you can easily shove this through and just bend the ends of it with some kind of object. Okay, so there we go. I have the two studs in, and like I said before, I'm not going to close them because they won't fit all the way through the band because it's thick. So I'm just going to do my next step and super glue the watch down.